Welcome to the Rise Above Performance Training, 15 Minutes of Strength, the show where we explore and discuss the vast landscape of strength to help all of us live our best and strongest lives. I'm your host, Doug Fiorinelli, and this is episode 4, Gamify Your Rehab, Change Your Mindset, and Accelerate Your Healing with Jason Dolby. Jason, welcome. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. How you doing?
Great, brother. Thank you, Doug. Thank you very much for having me, man. I'm definitely looking forward to this.
So you and I have known each other for over 10 years, but our audience probably does not know you. So can you just give us a quick little biography of who Jason is?
Sure. I grew up always very interested in the physical world of physical fitness. My father teaches Subak-do, Korean martial arts. And so at 5 years old, he would drag me down to the studio, and I would kind of watch what he and the classes were doing, and so on and so forth. And then, he started throwing me in the classes as well, so I could learn. And my dad was also into weight training and physical fitness, so I always wanted to kind of be like my dad, look like my dad, and get stronger. And that kind of pushed me forward into really a life of exercise and hiking and rock climbing, lifting weights, playing sports, football, track and field, so on and so forth. And then, I became a personal trainer, and that was I still am a personal trainer, but, with some different tributaries now off of sort of that main river of personal training. But yeah, really, really great. And, as part of my strength and fitness, I stumbled across the kettlebell and then kettlebell sport. And a man by the name of John Wild Buckley and I met in 2007. And we put our heads together, and I wanted to assist him in growing the Orange Kettlebell Club, which he founded in, I believe it was 2008. But so we've been traveling and teaching kettlebell sport seminars and certifications for quite a while now. And so competing and coaching is still a big part of what I do. And of course, at Rise Above Performance Training, Big Dougie, you yourself are quite the coach and are very, very familiar with kettlebells, and you've competed several times yourself. So that's where I am today, just trying to keep it going, hanging in there with the youngsters.
Yeah, that's great. No, that's how I met you and John Wild Buckley, was primarily through the kettlebell when I was trying to learn that. And I mean, I learned so much from traditional strength and kettlebells from you guys. What I really like about you is you're kind of the consummate student, kind of try, how I like to be as well, and always trying new things and kind of using yourself as your own guinea pig, and trying to learn new things and pass that along to your clients and to the world. And recently we had a conversation that you had a pretty significant injury, and you were trying to use some different kind of rehab methodologies to kind of come back a little bit faster. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about in this podcast, to maybe get people to think a little bit differently when they do get injured. And maybe, the traditional of like resting and icing and elevating, yeah, that could all work. But is there a better way to help an athlete who kind of knows their body to accelerate their rehabilitation and get back to doing what they love to do a little bit sooner?
Absolutely. I guess it was about 8.5 weeks ago, 9 weeks ago now. My longtime client of mine had shown up a bit early for a fitness training session. And so I don't like to have sort of that unprepared feeling. So I said, okay, cool. I'm going to grab some of the gear that I train him with, and, hurry up and get outside to the courtyard and so on. And, during COVID, I've pretty much been training everyone either in their backyards or the courtyard kind of behind my place and so on. And on this particular day, I thought that it would be a very smart thing to, so I throw on my mask, I lose my southern peripheral vision, if that's what you would call it. And then I grab this big foam plyo box. Okay. And then wait, it gets dumber. And then I throw on some house slippers, some Nike house slippers. And then I proceed to run down the stairs. Yeah. Nice, Jay. So
just eliminating friction from the equation, right?
right. So yeah. So I was going faster than I thought, and I missed the last couple of stairs. And it's a brick stairway, and then when you get to the bottom, it's just all flat brick. And I missed the last couple of stairs. First point of contact was my right ankle, and my right ankle apparently in that supinated position, and I just heard this crunch, and then I hit the floor. So that being said, definitely not good. Was on crutches for quite a while, 2 crutches, then to 1 crutch. Then now I'm pretty much at the end of just using 1 cane. So much better. But one thing for sure that you want to do as soon as an injury takes place is use the range of motion that you are at that moment able to utilize and mobilize that area of the injury. As long as you're not moving into more pain than you're already feeling, actually getting some circles going with the ankle, doing a couple of small figure eights just to send out those signals from the mechanoreceptors in the joint, right? So you want to send those signals out. Brain goes, hey, wow, this area is still working. And so it's actually the first and the fastest way to start rehabbing yourself is literally right after no, I'm not saying, I recommend this or whatever, you have to do this, or this is the way to go about it. Because of course, an injury could be really just horrendous. And of course, at that point, you want the medical professionals to assist you. But quick mobilization of whatever range of motion you're able to do. So mine was very small figure eights, very small circles. And I was doing that on the ground even before my clients got over to me to kind of help pull me up on my, I would say feet, but my foot. And then, And the other thing is, so sending those signals of, hey, we're okay, this area still works, very, very quickly after injury, super important. And
touching on that, how long do you think before the body starts to change the kind of that connection between the injured area and your brain to say, hey, we got to shut this off and not work it? Is it almost within an hour or so? Or
that's I definitely do not have that answer, but yes. But my guess is that it probably does not take that long. And usually after the swelling has really kind of kicked in, and swelling's not a bad thing, right? Swelling comes to the table almost the way that EMTs and paramedics and firefighters come to the table when there's a real serious accident, right? So they have to do their job. So the swelling and everything, that's a natural response to kind of help the healing process, and also to kind of create the inflammation also can kind of create like a brace in itself, because there's not a lot of movement when you look like a freaking water balloon, right? So, so I would say, do whatever movement you can that is not, overly agonizing at that point in time, just to kind of get those signals going back and forth between brain and injured joint or area. As long as it's obviously not like a break or a compound fracture, then it's like, no, you're not going to be thinking about that yet.
Okay. And then after that, so you got that going, and then your client helped you up. I mean, let's say that evening, what did you do? Did you ice? Did you heat? Or did you completely off it? Like, didn't put any pressure on there? What's the next phase?
Yeah. So for me, and this is, again, it's obvious. Obviously I'm not a doctor, but it's, I wouldn't necessarily say that there should be a certain time that goes by before one throws some ice on there or whatever. I did do a little bit of icing later toward the evening, but what I did mostly was just baby mobilization. And, I kind of elevated the foot, just more so to, not necessarily to reduce swelling, but just to elevate it and just get it up. Like, I'm sitting here trying to relax and kind of kick the leg up and so on. And then, of course, the baby mobility is a little bit easier at that point in time. later in the evening, I did, work with the ice and so on and so forth. And then, I had some ace bandages left over from kettlebell sport that we do. We used to kind of wrap the wrist to protect the wrist from the kettlebell in kettlebell sport, but for a totally different reason. And so, yeah, got the ace bandages on there and so on, did a little bit of icing, not a lot. As it turns out, and I learned this from, and Doug, I know I mentioned this guy to you, but Dr. Andrew Huberman out of Stanford. He's got a lab out of Stanford, and I believe he's a professor of neurobiology and also ophthalmology. And so he has his podcast, which is just loaded with info. And so what I learned was, well, if you continually make a habit of just icing right after an injury, that's very interesting. But when you cool those neurons in, right at the site of injury, when you cool them down low enough, early enough in your injury, and often enough, when things kind of warm back up after you take your ice off and so on and so forth, what's very interesting is the pain. The brain sort of recognizes, oh wow, this is now those neurons are more excited. They're more basically the pain signals are accelerated like 2 or 3-fold, and I forget exactly what it was, but yes. So I'm mobilized. I didn't ice a whole lot. I did just a little bit, but focused on baby mobility and keeping it braced and stable enough, and trying to keep my weight off of it when moving around. Although when I would stop, I would try to safely load my whole weight, like, evenly distributed, like you normally would stand, as long as I didn't push myself further into pain.
Okay. That's pretty interesting there. So as the days went on, what was the protocol or that you kind of went along? Were you working that area specifically along with your other things, or were you like, I'm going to lay off it, work around it? Maybe the joint above and below, like the knee and the hip, and kind of lay off the ankle. What was your mindset going forward on the rehab process? Great
question. So yes, actually, I did a lot of working kind of the above and well, there's not so much below, but working on the musculature on that side above the injury. So my brother, he has a good friend that he works with that had loaned him actually a boot, sort of like one of those, like a walking cast type of plastic boot with the Velcro straps and so on and so forth. So when I was at home for a while, like if I went to bed, if I'm moving around in the kitchen or whatever, I would kind of have that on just so I could have weight on through it. At least, the brain is now understanding that, okay, cool. Wow. The glute, the hamstring, the quad, even the calf to some extent, even though the ankle joint doesn't move in this boot. Yeah. Wow. We're getting load. Well, this is great. Like, okay, cool. So that automatically kind of starts the healing process. But as far as like the ankle itself, super delicate. And so it was just a one day at a time thing. And I would utilize whatever range of motion, however large I could evert or invert or, go through some ankle circles or little figure eights. And I would try to actually work with bending my toes and extending the toes. That didn't hurt too much and so on if the foot was elevated. But I did a lot of different things, very, very delicate with the ankle. But with the boot on, I was able to actually, within, I would say maybe 4 days, do a little bit of strength training. For example, holding on to, a handle or holding on to a pole or something like that, an arm on a machine in my home gym to do some kind of body weight squats being supported by the arms. Really, really great. So I got these areas working pretty quickly. But what I will tell you is that I want to say one of the biggest game changers for me in looking at that injury was just really to gamify everything. And I said, okay, cool. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to approach this with a fun attitude. First things first, I already knew I could just kind of do some old school, drop some bro science and go in and do some, little, whatever, fat bell training, dumbbell training, little, bench press, even do some pull-ups and so on and so forth, bicep curls, whatever. So I had fun playing around with just some old school,
things that you haven't done in a long time, specifically.
More of the meathead exercises. And don't get me wrong, once a meathead, always a meathead inside. So I still have that guy in me because, I trained like that, initially. And so before kettles and all this underground training. So I knew I was going to be able to do that. But as far as really, really accelerating the healing process of the ligaments in my ankle, and it was not a break, it was just ligamentous structure damage. And so I said, you know what? This is going to be great. I'm going to get creative. We're going to have some fun. And so I would have certain things like they're still there. It's still, the rules still apply. I would say, okay, if I want to get something out of the kitchen, I have to go over and do, the sand dune stepper. I don't know if you're familiar with that item, but
I have seen it. Yes. It's kind of like an unstable surface, like a Bosu or something similar.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. So, they were designed, I believe, originally for like neuropathy patients and people who were rehabbing through serious injury or whatever in the hospital setting. Now, Rogue Fitness actually sells them and so on. But they're just a really great tool. And it's like almost kind of stepping or stomping in kind of a dense mud, and just absolutely amazing. So if I want something from the fridge or make some coffee, I have to, go over and do 50 slow, delicate marches, barefoot, of course, on the sand dune stepper, so on. I have this new product that David Weck from Weck Method came out with called Soul Steps, and they're very cool. They're just basically the shape of a foot made out of wood, but they're elevated in the front. So as a coach working with a lot of athletes, we get tight in the calves, and then the toes want to stay kind of pointing down. It's hard for us to dorsiflex or come back the other way. So you step on these and you're dorsiflex, but then also too, you're supinated because most people pronate. And so I'll step on these and not even use them for what they were intended for. I'll step on these things and just do these closed chain little knee circles that I learned through Dr. Eric Cobb in Z Health. And so, I'll say, okay, cool. 50 slow marches here on the sand dunes. And then I have to do 20 close chain knee circles each direction on these guys. And then I can get something out of the fridge. Turning these things into a game where all of a sudden now you're getting really just hundreds and hundreds of reps per week, if not thousands, right? And I wanted to also get creative with gamifying my recovery. I always have sort of used the analogy of, when things were challenging and then they're going to get easier. I said, at first it's going to be like swimming through peanut butter, and then you'll get to the water and you'll really start moving. But understand, it's going to be a slow process at first, as one could imagine what swimming through peanut butter would be like. What I actually did, just because it popped in my head, I said, it'd be great if I could go through all ranges of motion, any movement with just the right amount of resistance, like just the right of kind of viscosity, whatever. So I ordered 3 on Amazon. I ordered these 3 separate 80-ounce Skippy peanut butter jars.
No way.
And then I ordered these little kind of a basin. It's like almost like a hospital basin, or you could use like a mop, in these basins, sort of like just a little bit longer than my foot, like a container, but maybe 6 inches high or whatnot. And I filled that up with peanut butter, right? And so you hop out of the shower, utilize that, and then throw your leg back in the shower, rinse that off, so on and so forth. But I was able to go through those figure eights. I was able to invert, evert, do these circles. And now you have just the right amount of resistance in every single angle you can imagine. And now I'm literally utilizing peanut butter for my recovery. And I know, it's like, well, that's kind of gross. It's not, whatever. But hey, man, you just kind of, lay a couple layers of, aluminum foil over afterwards and so on. And, you shower before and then boom, shower after. And like, you're able to utilize it. And it's not like I have to keep that there, longer than a couple of weeks or whatnot. But yeah, man, it's been a fun thing to gamify the recovery and having that mindset and using my crutches to say, you know what, this is really amazing because I can dynamically stretch my soleus and my calves while being unloaded. So aqua therapy is a big thing, right? So when people they go through knee replacements or hip replacements, a lot of times they're going through aqua therapy. But what does that do? It takes away a lot of your body weight, right? Well, guess what crutches do? The same thing, right? So I would always, every day I'm sitting there and I would lean on the crutches and I'd have, my undamaged leg in front and my damaged leg in the back. And it was just, imagining getting my flexibility back so that I didn't end up with some kind of problem moving forward with my Achilles tendon. I said, nope, from day one, I'm going to make sure slowly and gently, I'm going to use the range of motion I have, but I'm going to deload myself with these crutches, but standing up, you're braced, it's great. And I'm just kind of going through this dynamic motion of stretching the soleus, trying to push the heel down to the floor, the bent knee style, then a straight knee style. And it's just been wonderful. So every opportunity that I would get, I would say, you know what, this is really going to be fun. And I'm going to turn everything, every part of just kind of my daily living and getting around into some kind of interesting workout for recovery. And one of the other things, and this is kind of the last real solid chunk of what I've been doing, is I will also turn things into a game where I am utilizing the damaged side, basically the leg, my right leg, where the ankle was injured. I will utilize it for certain things and not allow lefty to come to the party. He's not allowed to help at all. So, I have this, I believe you have the same thing, but we have this Rogue Echo bike.
Yes.
And so I would hop on this bad boy and, in the boot at first, of course. And then later I was, I could wear some kind of like some high top boots or so on, like sneaker boots or whatever. But I would get on that thing and I would pedal with my right leg and then kind of push and pull with my left arm. And then my left leg, the one that worked fine, that was undamaged, I would just keep that on the peg in front. So it wasn't allowed to be utilized at all. And I did that with several other exercises. But what they discovered, there's a clinic called the Taub Clinic in Madison, Wisconsin. And what they do is they work with stroke victims. And so the stroke victims will go to the Taub Clinic, and it's very interesting. So what they do, and the people will come in and stay for a few weeks. And so the side that was unaffected by the stroke, in other words, like let's say you had a stroke on the left side of your brain, now you can't use your right side. So what they would do is they would put oven mitts on your functional side, your only arm that actually works. They would put like double oven mitts on you and then duct tape the hell out of them. And then the people would have to, if they wanted to eat, they had to figure it out and do it with their damaged side. Yeah. And what that in turn does is then it starts healing the damaged side of the brain on the opposite side, right? And so in just a short period of time, they start getting their function back. And it's just bananas, but it works every time. And so Dr. Huberman had sort of mentioned that. And he was talking about an injured leg and so on. And I was listening to the podcast. I go, you know what? That's crazy. Because what he said, he did not mention the Taub Clinic and the stroke victims, but I said, you know what? Of course it's the same. Of course it's so I started doing that, Doug. And lo and behold, man, it was just amazing. And it was the way that I felt and what I felt and the sounds that I heard and I'm telling you, there's no way I should be as functional right now as I am. And I put a ton of it on, I give a ton of credit to just being able to gamify those things. Okay, how creative can I get? All right, cool. Oh, boom. Guess what? In rehab and training, No one's using peanut butter in a bucket. You know what I mean? So I said, yeah, we're going to change that.
Well, that remind me of the, how they used to use like rice buckets and things for wrist injuries, for upper body injuries. And I've seen that, but that makes sense. Like we only use it for the upper body, but how do we utilize rehabilitation methods for the lower body? And I mean, I guess as long as you're not making a sandwich, I mean, peanut butter like that will work pretty darn well.
Yeah. And if you think about, and rice, and it's great, no doubt, right? For sure. Or dried beans, whatever. But if you think about the resistance and the fluidity and the unchanging, it's the exact same resistance. If your whole foot and ankle is submerged in peanut butter, and, of course, not chunky, because that might mess with the flow. So smooth Skippy is
there you go.
What I purchased. And if you think about that, like just being able to wiggle left and right, in the beginning, it's like it was a challenge. It was a challenge because that resistance is pretty great, but it's also soft enough to where you're getting some movement in every way, every shape, just wiggle and wobble, and it doesn't matter. And the brain's going, all right, you know what? We're really doing some work on this damaged side. And then that in turn speeds up recovery like nobody's business.
No, I really like what you touched upon. I mean, because there's so many facets of what you covered. The first part, the gamifying, what you're doing essentially is, you kind of accepted something bad has happened, but you're going to move on and push forward. So one, it causes your mindset shift, right? Yeah. So you are now in the mindset of like, all right, this is in the past, but how am I going to recover? Instead of, thinking about the injury constantly and what you can't do, what can I do with this? So that starts that out. It causes you to take action. So you're doing what you can consciously. So you're really in the moment of that training of like what you can do, given your body's giving you feedback, and it'll tell you if this is the right thing to do or not the right thing to do. I've imagined like with pain, being your guide, and also gives you hope, and it cuts down that time of recovery. So I think that is good. In the short amount of time we have here, I mean, a lot of people, if something like this happens and let's say they don't have the knowledge that you have, what would be your protocol? Like just give us the quick bullet points like, oh man, okay, I just fell and hurt my wrist.
Okay. Yeah. You fall and hurt your wrist.
And I know how to go to the gym, but I don't know like, oh, is this exercise bad? I mean, am I getting caught up in minutia? So what should I do? Like a quick rundown of what you would do and then make minor changes. Yeah,
for sure. So you fall, you injure your right wrist, let's say. Okay. All right. And that really sucks because we use hands all day, every day. So, So as soon as that happens, not to put yourself into more pain, right? Because we don't want to do that, but using the range of motion that you can utilize, as long as it's not like you didn't break your wrist, because then it's like, look, man, get the doctor, get casted up. But of course, well, it would actually apply as soon as you got that cast off anyway. But that's for a different conversation. So the hand, you literally start with wiggling your fingers, wiggles and wobbles and wiggles. Okay. So that is like, it's kind of a fun, silly way to look at it, but it is the answer to everything. The human body, if we look at the skeletal system of the human, if you look at your human skeletal system, like a cement mixer truck, then you say, okay, cool. You know what? I understand this. I have to flow. I have to continue flowing and moving. Otherwise, things are going to solidify. And like, as far as cement, right? It's like once that stops moving, it's going to turn to rock hard concrete, whatever. You got to break it to move it now. Yep. So you stay fluid and you always have that mindset. So with the wrist, start wiggling the fingers, barely moving your wrist in all directions possible, as long as you're not moving past that sort of pain barrier. You don't want to be in more pain than you currently are from the injury, but start wiggling and wobbling and do your best throughout the day to do certain tasks with your arm, or even if you can't use your hand yet, you can just literally say, okay, cool. I'm going to get a rubber band, like a big therapy band or something like that. Or, kind of slide your hand maybe through like an old t-shirt, your injured side. And then, kind of like have the material around your wrist And then with sit down in the chair and with your foot, just kind of step on that t-shirt, and you can do just little baby curls or isometric curls or, whatever, pull and hold and so on, working that side, even if you don't have gym equipment. And your lefty's not allowed to do anything. You know what I mean? You're not allowed to train with the left, but work and flex. And even if it's just being silly, whatever, flexing in the mirror or telling your wife, hey, check out the gun show. Only show her the gun show on the right side, on the injured side where your wrist was injured, and then flip that mindset into gamifying. Well, I mean, of course, if you're, hey, check out my bicep, you're gamifying, right? But those things are silly, they're fun, whatever. And then you're going to utilize whatever range of motion you have on each day moving forward, and work with what you have on the day, as long as you don't move in to a new pain zone or cause more and more pain as you recover. You want to stay pain-free if you can. Use whatever range of motion that you can, and then get creative when you're ready. Use that rice, use that peanut butter, come up with something better than I did. Get super creative. Who knows? Slide your fingers in between the two cushions on your couch and say, you know what? I'm going to, extend my wrist this direction, hold it isometrically for 15 seconds today, not 12 seconds like yesterday. Whatever, right? Gamify and really play around.
Just making small progress going along.
Absolutely correct. Understand that it's one little baby step, each day, one little baby step. But as long as those baby steps are moving in the direction of positivity, you can't fail. You're going to improve no matter how small your steps are, if you're taking those steps in the right direction.
Awesome. Jason, that was great. Hey, where can people find more information about you if they want to, reach out or check out your social media or stuff like that? Where's the best place to go?
For sure. So I am on Instagram. I am at Dolby Style, DOLBYSTYLE. So Dolby Style, one word. And then on Facebook, it's just Jason Dolby, but I'm not really on Facebook much. But I would recommend either the Instagram at Dolby Style, or you can go to my website, dolbystylefitness.com. So that's Dolby Style as one word. Next word, fitness, then .com.
Awesome. Jason, thanks for joining. We'd love to have you back on another time and continue the discussion and talk about other things as well. But thanks again for jumping on today. And it was a pretty insightful and just a different way of looking at things, and to help people out and to get stronger.
Hey, Doug. Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And it was an honor to be on your podcast, and I look forward to being on here again with you, bud.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I hope you found the information valuable. If you like the content and want to hear more, please consider subscribing to the podcast, as well as Rise Above Performance Training YouTube channel. Also, check out the website at riseabovestrength.com and sign up for the monthly newsletter. The show notes for everything we talked about today will be down below for everything you need. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining. And remember, all the strength you need is created on the inside and reinforced from the outside. Take care, everyone.